Hello, I'm Patricia and this is Get Conscious Now. This show is about raising consciousness, raising awareness in a world that's mostly unconscious. Our intent is to help people to become aware that there's much more going on in this human experience than meets the eye. Our mission, therefore, is to explore the true nature of our physical reality, and very importantly, its practical implications for living a mindful, happier, and joyful life. We're dedicating today's show to Dr. Wayne Dyer, who passed away on August 29th in his sleep at his home in Hawaii. Wayne Dyer was a revered and admired spiritual teacher that brought the consciousness conversation to millions of people all over the world with his gentle wisdom and visionary mind. And he was a dear friend of our guest today. So today's show is about conscious media, something that we are very, very committed to and passionate about here and with our Get Conscious Now show. And our guest today is a pioneer in conscious media and raising awareness. And in the transformation of the media itself, we know that the media needs to be transformed today. And you're going to meet our guest in a minute, but right now I want to introduce my partner and co-host, Stu Zimmerman, who is always ready with his loving smile and his wit and wisdom to give you warm words of welcome. Hello, Stu.
Hello, Patricia.
Welcome.
Thank you again as always. Yeah. And hi, everybody. Welcome to our show. And I hope that you've seen it before, but if you haven't, welcome as a first time. And yes, as Patricia mentioned, we are talking about consciousness. And we also get to talk about, in other practical terms, and we can simply call it love. Because ultimately, truthfully, aren't we really here just simply to love our lives? And so our exploration here on this program is dedicated not only to the true nature of our physical reality, but also creating an emotional reality and a perceptual reality that makes us sing, dance, and say thank you. And so to that extent, if you've missed any of our prior shows, and we have a whole bunch right now, we have about 30 or so in the can, we really invite you to come to our YouTube channel or visit us on Facebook and come to our website as well, where we have our entire library of shows with people like Deepak Chopra and Reverend Michael Beckwith, and covering consciousness and taking forward thinking and open-heartedness into just about every aspect of everyday life. But before you hear from today's show and today's great guest, here's a word from a couple of our supporters.
If you are passionate about your message, if you want your book to be the best it can be, and if you want someone to do it for you with your collaboration every step of the way, then Ellen Reed is the one for you. Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it. There is no question, if we're going to be totally honest, that the media today holds primarily vibrations of negativity and fear. Whether we're listening to the radio or watching TV or a movie, we're bombarded with negative vibes. How long can humanity deal with this? Change must happen. And good news is that change is happening through bringing conscious conversation to the people. And our guest today is a pioneer in that genre, and not only in bringing conscious media to the fore, but being a catalyst in the transformation of the media, which must happen. Our guest today is Lisa Garr. Lisa is best known as the host of The Aware Show that airs on Pacifica Radio, KPFK in Los Angeles. And she has interviewed thousands of fabulous new thinkers, people that are really about being experts in their fields and showing how consciousness is really gaining ground today. It's bubbling up and it's coming more and more into the mainstream. So the transformation of the media is critically important, and Lisa Garr is a pioneer in that area. She is also the host of a Gaiam TV series called Gaiam Inspirations, And she also is the regular weekend host of Coast to Coast. I was talking to her today and saying, my God, girl, when do you sleep? You do the shows every day on KPFK, and then on the weekend you're working. She said, well, it's only the weekend. So she also, another tidbit about Lisa is that she has one of the most watched telesummits on the internet. And combined with her television, her radio, and in the summits, she serves and she speaks to millions of people globally every month, literally millions of people, which is fabulous. She's doing an amazing job in waking up humanity. She is also a new author. Her new book is Becoming Aware, and it's really an amazing story of her life, her personal journey to awakening that began with a very, very serious bicycle accident, and we're going to hear all about that tonight. So Lisa, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And you are on the other side of the table.
I know, this is so interesting. You are doing an amazing job.
Welcome, welcome.
Hi.
Is it easier to be on the other side?
This is cake. I'm loving this. I'm usually in that position where, I mean, being a host, you organize everything in your mind, and you're the host. I mean,
and you really hope it comes out of your mouth and you organize it.
Oh, I know, exactly. And this is a beautiful way. I feel like I'm on the receiving end. This is really interesting. I love it.
Well, it's both.
Yes,
giving and receiving.
Giving and receiving. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And I've always experienced that as a host. And it was interesting to hear about the conscious media and being a pioneer of conscious media, because I feel that it is the conversations that everybody has always had with their friends or their family or in their organizations and so forth. It's just having it in the media somehow glorifies it, and I don't think it should. I think that conscious media is just awakening the conversations that's already in people.
Right.
And
it's
that's
helping
what
them
I've
become awake and aware to it, yes.
Again, yes. And that having these conversations on television or radio or internet, wherever we are, it just is the choir is meeting the choir, really, if you think about it.
Right.
And in terms of the news, I mean, I watch the news all the time, but I watch it in a way where I have more neutrality when I'm watching the news.
Right.
Where I'm looking at it from a different perspective and encompassing all that is about the news and about consciousness and about awakening and about all of it. It's kind of all the same thing if you really look at it.
Well, it is, because there's only, everything is connected, right? I mean, we're all connected.
That's what I discovered and that takes me kind of that accident experience, so yes.
Well, before we go there, I want to ask you, what would be your definition of awareness? How do you define aware and awareness? I mean, that's really the focus of your work and the name of your show. And
it's interesting because in my interviews on the radio, that word kept coming up, and I named the show Aware because it was a dream and it was a whole vision. But I noticed that the guests kept saying the words, and when I became aware of, and becoming aware of this, and when I became aware, and I realized that that's the root of all of, many of our solutions. And I don't remember where I heard the phrase awareness is 80% of the solution, but it truly is. When you become aware of, for example, how you're eating or how you're thinking, just that act of becoming aware of it shifts and changes everything after that. And when you're asleep to it, you can't change it. But when you become aware of it, it's the catalyst that starts to change the trajectory of where you're going with that thing, about the relationship or your thought pattern. It's all really pretty much about your thought patterns.
Well, it's really quantum physics, because quantum physics tells us that subatomic particles that are not observed don't change. The only time that subatomic particles are going to change, through our thinking, is through observation. And also, when we want to heal those programs in our subconscious that run us, if we're not aware of them, then they don't change. So awareness is really critical.
It is, absolutely. And it's been the theme, and it covers so many different things. It really is. Someone recently said, aware is the new self. Like, how Self magazine was about, it really was all about awareness. And it's kind of the word that really transcends all boundaries, that word aware. It really does. It does.
Well, we're certainly aware that you've got a lot going on in your life.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it started at a pretty early age, because you're in a family that has some entertainment
background.
Background and
Yes.
experience. Can you just
Yes.
share with us a few of the high points of growing up before we get into what really shifted things
Absolutely.
into this awareness?
I was very privileged to have an early mentor in my life of my aunt, Terry Garr, and I watched her in a way of, her life was miraculous. I mean, she was able to create things, very smart lady, to look at scripts and be able to really choose the right script, and the way that she was being, who she was being, enabled her to connect with like Gene Wilder while jogging. I mean, that was her life. You know, she got that Young Frankenstein job because of meeting him on a jog and Gene Wilder, because it's a matter of who you're being. And I was fascinated with who she was being. Her lifestyle was one of, she wasn't an actress. She truly was her characters. She wasn't acting her character. She would embody herself. And I think that's the sign of a really great actor or actress, is that when they take these roles on and they become these roles. And I could never do it because I always wanted to do myself, and I didn't know how to fully do this deep dive where these actors will gain and lose 60 pounds. But they do that because they really immerse themselves in that role. And I mean, before that, my grandfather was a vaudevillian, so he played vaudeville, and he was in entertainment, and my grandmother was a rockette.
One of the original Rockettes.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
entertainment has been in my family blood. I started off in television production. So I started producing daytime talk and doing various different segments on daytime talk, but it was when I started to, wow, so much happened, but at a very early age, when I was 12, I picked up Shakti Gawain's book, Creative Visualization. And then my father, who's an MD, was listening to Tony Robbins. So I had this great kind of combination of entertainment met personal development when I was being raised. It was an interesting upbringing.
So let's get right to the catalyst that changed your life. Tell us about the bicycle accident.
So I was, producing daytime talk, and I was also creating a company at the same time that filled audiences for television shows. Because as we would get into development and new concepts, they would need people to come to the shows, as we know, and so I started to create a name for myself of being able to bring an audience to a pilot. And that grew because it was a niche. And I was working very hard and creating this company, producing daytime talk. So I was working hard, but without a purpose. And when you work without a purpose, it's just work. It's just a job. But when your work is aligned with your purpose, it's not work at all, right? As you know. And so I was in this grind of unconscious work, and fairly unconscious in my relationships, because I was really focused on that. So I got involved with mountain bike racing from a group of friends who were in television, and a friend of mine said, hey, you should come out with us. And I loved it. I loved mountain biking, and still rode today. I love mountain biking. And I got fairly good at it because I was riding with probably 95% guys, and it was just, no rest for the weary. They got to the top, the minute I got there, they would go. And I would have to go if I wanted to figure out where I was. And so I started to get into mountain bike racing because they were doing that. So I said, okay, sure. So I loved the whole experience of it and was fairly good at it. Wound up being second overall in the state of California in this series that I was in. It was a 7-race series. Last race, double points race, high stakes. I never really was in it for the competition. I just loved the personal best and what I was able to draw from my personal body. I was very into the kind of mental aspects of mountain biking. And it was me against the mountain. And all of a sudden in this last race, I found myself with the first place girl in front of me, and I had no idea how I got there. She was all of a sudden, I was about to, because in the descent before the finish line, it was a loop, and I had been able to pass her on this descent, and I thought, how did I catch her? It's almost over, and I'm so happy. It's 108 degrees. It's 27 miles and 5,000 feet of climbing, and I'm done. I am wanting to get to the end of this race. I was done. In my mind, that was the last thing that I remembered, because the next thing that I knew, I was looking up at my bike. So I had this thought, and I was on my bike, and then the bike was above me, and I have no idea what happened in that time period, other than I must have cracked my helmet. It flew off of my head, it was gone, and I must have just continually hit my head as I rolled down this mountain into the bottom of this mountain. And I was trying to get up to my bike, and I remember there were a lot of pine trees and dead pine needles, and I kept slipping on these pine needles because I obviously had no balance whatsoever. And then I just gave up. And that was really, really, truly significant because when I slipped on these pine needles, I slipped truly into another state of being, into a completely different state of consciousness. But this was so amazing because this state of consciousness is here now with us at this moment. It doesn't have to be from an accident. I slipped into a place where everything was completely, truly the same, where there were no boundaries. There was no separation. This idea of oneness truly does exist, where we are all a part of everything else. I went into this coherent field where I became the trees, I became the sky, I became Asia. And this race was in California, and all of a sudden Asia was here. It was here. It was all around me. And there was no boundaries whatsoever between me and anything. And then I started hearing these voices, but it wasn't the sound, it was the soul. It was the voice of the soul of these medics that were attending to my body, because at this point, my body, I managed to see, was on a stretcher, was throwing up. I was severely dehydrated, and all this stuff was going, but I couldn't feel that. There was no pain where I was. Pain is contained to the body. Pain is contained to the consciousness inside the body. And when you get outside of that, pain goes away because you connect into the coherent field of all that is absolutely painless and beautiful. And it's just a matter of awareness, of knowing that that field exists. You don't have to have a near-death experience or traumatic brain injury. My whole point with every show I do, everything I do, and every moment that I have is to allow people to understand this field exists right here, right now. And that's with everything I do. And I went into that field and then connected with these medics, and as they were helping my body get onto the stretcher and get into a helicopter, at that point I was failing completely. All systems were shutting down. I had stopped sweating, I had stopped vomiting, I was completely failing. So they didn't have enough time to get my body in an ambulance. I was in a mountain. Got it into a helicopter, and I could hear these blades, but I was very unfamiliar with what was happening. It sounded like blades, but I connected with the medic that was in the helicopter with me, but I could communicate with him with my thoughts, but nothing was coming out of my mouth. And before then, I will mention to you that when my body was on the ground, I saw the guy that I went to the race with, and he was the guy that I had broken up with, and we were in this bad relationship because I wasn't present. And I remember seeing him come up to my body, and I remember observing an energy that was so bright and so shiny. It was a color I didn't remember seeing. It's hard to explain, but it was clear, but yet it was opalescent, and it was also sparkly, but it was also white and silver, and it was all these different colors. But I remember seeing this energy between us, and I got in just to open my eyes to connect with his, to send a nonverbal message to him that I'm here, but I really wasn't. I was all around him and us. And then he got that communication. So he wound up meeting me in the hospital after the body got to the hospital, which was a whole new set of situations and circumstances when I got to the hospital. But that experience of that oneness and that coherence was what I carry through and have carried through everything that I've done since then.
Wow. And he's now your husband.
He is. He is, because I realized that at that moment that there was so much more than I was allowing him to be in my life. And that when in that space, we tend to look at our lives like this and with blinders and are thinking that our crises and everything that we go through is all there is. And that is truly the biggest thing going on in our lives. And it is literally, once you get outside of that perspective, you can see how everything can change. As my mentor said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, as Wayne had said. And it's truly a perspective shift that allows you to change those things that you look at. Yes, he was so right on with that, and said it so many times, and wrote books about it, and did videos and shows on it. And it is so true. That phrase is really describes all there is. It does.
Well, that's an incredible experience,
Yeah.
to say the least, and
Yeah.
clearly a life shifter.
Yes.
And from a
Yes.
physical standpoint, your physical brain actually suffered some damage.
Yes.
Right? So you had to kind of retrain that. I think you called it brain-nastics.
Yes. When I woke up in that hospital, there was a doctor standing there asking me my, name and where I was born and all the vitals that they ask you. And I went to answer him, and that was when I couldn't. And unfortunately, I had damaged a part of my brain that broke the connection between the language center of my brain and my actual language. And I went to answer him, and I couldn't. Everything stopped at my neck, and I panicked. That was where I went into a complete state of fear and lost everything that I had just done. That state, everything went away because I couldn't speak, and I knew my name, and I knew where I was born, but it wasn't coming out of my mouth. And many people with traumatic brain injuries don't understand. Well, thank God there's so much more awareness about it now, but what you go through when you have a traumatic brain injury or any type of concussion that happens in our world every 3 seconds, the brain swells, and different parts of the brain stop responding because of the areas that are hit or dehydrated or or bumped. And that particular one was my language, and that's also connected to memory, long-term and short-term memory. So I lost a lot of my childhood, and from there forward had to retrain and reawaken that center of my brain that had been damaged. And I'll explain how I did it, but that's how I repatterned my brain. And I am here to tell you that it is possible, that I was able to reestablish my language through practice, through discipline, through neurofeedback, through meditation, through visualization, all of these things that are accessible to all of us. That is literally how I repaired my brain. And I still have challenges with words and language and flipping things in memory, but I've also accepted that. I'm not in as much resistance and fear as I was. And I watch people go through when they start to lose memory. They get into panic and then lock it in at that moment and make a decision about themselves, that they have early signs of Alzheimer's. And my father's going through this, and I'm trying to explain to him that moment of panic and fear is where you actually anchor in more of your belief system than actually is there.
You're manifesting what you're fearing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I'll take a breath.
So easy. Well, all right, I'll give you a breather because I want to ask you a question. So we did our pre-interview call on Tuesday, and the train, I live in Summerlin, and the train went by.
Yes.
And you went, is that a train? No. And I said, yes, it is. And you, either I love trains or something like that. And then we didn't talk about that after that. And then I went and I was perusing your book and read the story of the dream. So now I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us the dream.
Yes. As I was going through the neurofeedback and rebuilding the brain, and neurofeedback, by the way, is fascinating because it's the electrodes they put on your head, and then you play these brain games with the computer, and you realize the parts of the brain that are not sending the signals, and so it sends back signals, and you build things on screens from that. So it's a great process. And then I was also taking classes in intuition and developing my own intuitive abilities just by listening. That's all it is. It was a psychic institute at the time, the Southern California Psychic Institute, but it was just a matter of answering and listening and the practice of knowing that your intuition is usually correct. And so I was having these dreams when I was going through this process of rebuilding my brain, rebuilding my life, recalibrating everything, and this train dream kept coming in, and it was a recurring one, where this train would come from nowhere. I mean, it was from somewhere, but it was from space, I guess, and it was in motion, and that was a very significant part of the dream, and it was in slow motion. And it was perpetual motion. It wasn't going to ever stop. And I would jump onto this train because it was going slow enough to walk in, and there were these audio boards and monitors, much like the control room here at the studio. And I would walk in, and I would see this very high-tech control room that was in motion. And in the chairs operating these control boards were these high-backed swivel chairs of visionary leaders swiveling around like kids in a total state of joy. They were giggling, just like that. They were laughing. And I loved that aspect of this dream, which was joy. It was total joy. And yet they were controlling this train. And the symbol of the streamliner train with the silver bullet train of the time, that time was a symbol of progress and of going somewhere when tracks were being laid, and it was a very significant symbol in the dream. And I remember that this was I interviewed so many dream analysts after that about the symbol of the train and the progress and where it's going, coming from somewhere and going to nowhere. And this, as I would step out of the dream, this word would be on the side of this silver bullet train that said the word aware. And it would be so, and it said a division of NHN, which I still haven't figured out. But it was that word aware that was very significant, and it was purple. It was in the dream. And I, through meditation and visualization after that, started to realize, okay, this was somehow, I put this together as being a show. This was my background in entertainment, and that this was a dream about a progressive control room of, I put it together that this is a show. Well, the minute I figured that out, I got a phone call from someone that said, oh, there's a radio station that's going out of business and their drive time hosts are jumping off. Do you want to have your own show? And I said, of course. I'm going to interview these people that are helping rebuild my brain and that I'm learning from about intuition and my incredible acupuncturists and people who are making such incredible moves in my life to help me rebuild my brain from this traumatic brain injury. Sure, I'll do this. And it all started to line up after that. Everything flowed because I opened up in myself what my dream was, and the universe said yes. And it was really literally my frequency that started to send out into the universe what needed to happen. And then I matched it halfway and went into action as to what was supposed to happen. And that's kind of what I have discovered and teach, and many other people teach these days, is aligning your dream, your vision with your frequency and allowing the universe to match it.
That's what we're doing with GCN, right?
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. Just and follow the yeses.
Yes, follow the yeses.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've had, in essence, a near-death experience.
Yes.
And that really was a gateway towards this awareness for you in terms of this unified state of being.
Yes.
And I also heard you say that one does not necessarily need to get to that level of near death to have this awareness and awakening. Why don't you share a little bit about how we can start making that transition for everybody who doesn't want to fall off their bike and land in a ravine?
Right, no, I don't suggest it.
No.
It's not fun.
Not for everybody.
And for many that have been through that, and I've heard from so many since I've written the book who have been through that, and there are many things that you can start to research about you living in a fog and losing your memory and having spikes of anger and these different things that come with brain injuries. And I have so much compassion for people that they lose their world. You go into a cave because you go into this survival mechanism, and you don't have to. You can just start to look up symptoms of traumatic brain injuries or even near-death experiences. It's one of the ways that I've discovered it. And you don't have to live like this. There are many different ways. So number one is to get into the state of visualization and meditation. And all you do is you just sit with your body anchored and firmly tethered to the ground so that it's safe, and that you can throw down a grounding cord to tether into Mother Earth, because she handles so many things and she can handle your body. And you can start to move up into different levels of consciousness And in my book, I wrote this great visualization process that's a video. You can actually scan your phone across these QR codes, and you can go into a visual process of going up the elevator of consciousness into different levels of awareness. Higher brain thinking, taking the high road. You've heard it so many different ways. It's just a matter of getting out of the survival and moving up into your level of thinking, going past judgment, going past negative thinking, all those things that we've done that we know keep us tethered into the lower vibrational ways of thinking, and going into that realm of possibilities where when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so that's where it is it's just a perspective shift. It's a shift in your point of view. And you can look at things differently. And so that's all I invite people to do, is start to go into visualization, into meditation, learn about brain entrainment technologies that can take you there in an audio form or a visual form. It's accessible to all of us.
So meditation and mindfulness is very important. And of course, this is what's really stressed today. I mean, emphasized today, that we need to be having that meditation, be meditating every day, and have a spiritual practice where meditation is a part of that. So it's not surprising to me that meditation and visualization was a huge part of your healing process. Mm-hmm. So in the book, you have scattered throughout the book, and at the end of every chapter, awareisms, you call them, awareisms. Mm-hmm. So tell us what an awareism is, and maybe give us some if you can remember.
Gosh. Awareisms are those times, those insights into your life where you have that moment. And it's not just one. I mean, I had that moment with the near-death experience off the bike. But these are moments in your life where you connect something with what you've learned to actually your experience of doing it. And I'm all about the practical. And I'm a very busy person, and I choose that life. I choose to do what I do in life because I truly love it. And so when I have an awareism, it's connecting. So for example, one of them is a conscious conversation. This is really easy to do. The first thing that you do right before you wake up, in that moment between sleeping, deep sleep, and awake, in that twilight, in that theta state, pay attention to where you were and what those thoughts are right before you awaken. Because as you've gone through the night, your unconscious starts to unravel all those unfulfilled, conversations, and close them, and come up with solutions and move into different realms. And so right in the morning, you really have you've had that great peacefulness, and you've formed some solutions to some of your problems that you even can ask right before you go to sleep. To pay attention to those and to start to remember them and bring them into your conscious mind. And the first conversation that you have with yourself in the morning is a conscious, connected conversation. The to-do list doesn't come in right away. Mm-hmm. It's that information that you bring over from your twilight sleep that enables you to have that first connected conversation. When your feet hit the floor, which is your anchor, you choose your intention for your day. So it's not like what I've got to do, and I've got to get the kid to school, and I've got to hit this to-do list, and it's not that. It's how you want to live your day and what conversation you want to be having with yourself. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at yourself in the mirror that morning, throw out the judgment of what you did and have and what you should look like, and just start to love yourself in that moment, all that you are, and your beauty will absolutely come through in that moment. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's such a wonderful moment just to have in that experience of your day. Because easily you can think back to this morning of when you hit the floor and your feet hit the floor and what you had to go through this day, and when you looked at yourself in the mirror, oh my God, I looked so this, that, the other thing. Is that serving us? Absolutely not.
So I was going to say, do you find that you have something very specific that you either ask or tell yourself every morning?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Could you care to share?
Oh my gosh, my first conversation with myself is a connected conversation of inspiration. So right now I'm in the process of building a new platform. And so I ask for guidance in this platform that I'm building to live my life that day in the highest potential that I possibly can, and to open myself to those those conversations in those realms of possibility that are outside my current awareness, and to open my awareness for that particular moment of that day. And yes, I set my intentions every morning to have that attraction to what it is that's supposed to come to me that day. No matter what the current situation is.
Yeah.
I don't look at the bank account or the numbers or whatever it is that's going on, that what's that reality, because I know that you have to live beyond that reality in order to change it.
I call it pre-paving the future energetically. Because when we do that, we're setting the field with the energy of our thoughts and our intentions, and we're then having an opportunity to live into that.
Yes.
You know, so we're actually creating it on an energetic level, and then we just live into it. Yeah.
I have a process that I have in the book that's called Remembering Your Future. It's a similar type of process where you go into the future acting as if seeing, feeling, thinking, hearing, smelling your dream realized.
Right.
And as Dr. Joe Dispenza, the wonderful neuroscientist, talks about all that does in the brain about building the neural bundles and refiring together the tentacles around those bundles that wire together. And then you bring that essence, vibration, feeling back to now, where that it actually becomes a memory. So that when you get to it, it's familiar. And that, I love that process. So the more you do that, then you can set anchors throughout your day of those moments of remembering your future. And you anchor it throughout your day so that it starts to build the field and becomes your reality.
That's beautiful. You know, one of the things that I do is I just ask, how can I love my beloved, the one woman in my life who I absolutely adore, who I get to wake up with in the morning.
Good for you, yes.
I'm so blessed and grateful. And just ask, how can I love her more today?
Wow. Wow.
I do. And I ask
Lucky
that
lady, right?
every single
right there, too.
I do.
Aw, wonderful, wonderful.
I do, and I really ask that authentically, and I don't know how it's going to show up, and I don't know if in any given day I've kind of hit my limit as to how much I could possibly love somebody, or or let go of my own belief systems around how it has to look.
Yes.
And what I'm noticing is it is showing up in just some of the most exquisite, beautiful, and in some cases just really simple ways that may not even seem like much by many measures, and yet it just adds just that extra little glint in the eye and just a little more deliciousness.
Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So obviously it's showing up in other areas of your life. You're more passionate about what you do. You're more passionate when you go to the market, when you eat meals, and it all comes in.
So you know what I say first thing? My intention for the day is to be the highest expression of consciousness that I could be in the body.
Yes, yes.
And that for me covers everything, because if I can be the most present and awake and aware of my divinity as I'm having this human experience, then everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to flow.
It's a practice. I mean, for me, it is absolutely practice. There are definitely times where I get knocked off of my consciousness, but the more and more and more I practice it, the more I train people around me to be in the same field with me. And I don't do it verbally. So, for example, if I have a 12-year-old and she goes to school, and if there is a level of drama happening with the kids in school or with the parents or whatnot, I am able to stay in that space of consciousness to be able to become the sounding board for those types of things that happen. I notice if I start to engage in those lower forms of drama or gossip, and I know that that doesn't serve me. And so I am, on a daily basis, practicing my state of heightened awareness. And I'm not on a mountaintop. I am not. I'm in the car, in the same traffic everybody else is in, and dealing with injustices in the world like everyone else is, and the drought in California like everyone else is. And these things, I incorporate this and that. And I try not to separate myself from those things that are going on or judge those things that are going on, because it only puts me in that same level of judgment.
Right, exactly.
It's a big one for me, is judgment.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think we all kind of fit into that category. Where judgment, and especially self-judgment.
Totally.
Which is just, we've been modeled that for generations and generations, right?
Yeah.
So it's an easy thing to slip into. What do you do in terms of resiliency? Do you actively try and kind of snap yourself out of it, or just kind of let the energy ride and eventually you'll come back to your set point?
This and that is one of my mottos. This and that. Not this or that situation, or me or that situation. It's me and that situation. So I try to bring in this coherent field for all the things that I do, and I have compassion for if someone is stuck in a negative conversation and maybe they're bringing all that from their past, and I have compassion for that. I don't take it personally. I just recently picked up Don Miguel Ruiz's book again, The Four Agreements.
Oh, great book.
I love those.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
So
don't take
simple.
it personally.
Right.
It's such a great first agreement of don't take it personally and be authentic and stay true to your word. Those great tried and true 4 agreements. If
And
you
they're
can live to that.
They're not easy. I mean, they're simply
Right.
stated, but they're not easy to do. To be impeccable with your word
Yes.
means
Right.
it's not just to be telling people the truth, but it's about telling yourself the truth. Be impeccable with your word. You judge yourself. Do you look at yourself in the
Right.
mirror and make all these judgments?
Right.
Yeah. And,
And
don't
do you do what you say you will?
Yes.
You know, so
yes.
there's all that follow through as well as don't make any assumptions.
Yeah.
Don't make any assumptions.
That's-
That's
Don't
the other
assume. Do your best. And the
Right.
5th agreement. Have you read the 5th
one. I
agreement?
interviewed him about that.
Oh yeah, we did too.
Yeah, we talked to his son.
His son,
Yes.
Miguel.
Yeah, that
was
Miguel. It was our first.
And
interview
it talk
ever.
about love. It's all
Yes.
about divine love.
It is.
It's all about the opening of the heart.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And going back to the busy world thing and the being conscious in a busy world, which is one thing that is a daily practice for me. I've also noticed that my overextending myself and saying yes to all the things that I want to do, and the yeses keep going and going, and I have to be conscious of that as well, because if I get too stressed and too overextended, then it doesn't work for anyone. So I have to have enough awareness in myself to be able to pick and choose what it is that I can say yes to and be honest with myself, because I'm also raising a child and have a relationship and those other
Yeah.
things too. So it's a big thing of noticing what you're saying yes
It's
to.
called balance. Right.
Boundaries.
And
yeah.
discernment. Yes,
Yeah.
to what's healthy for us and what isn't so much.
And knowing that things will get taken care of, even if you say no to them, it opens up the space for someone else to say yes to, or something else to come through.
That's true.
So at the toward the end of our call, or maybe it wasn't toward the end of it. Actually, I went to bed last night listening to our call because I taped it.
Oh, great.
And I'm going to start doing that because I
That's a
heard
great
things
idea.
I heard things that I didn't hear while I was jotting down notes. And one of the things that you said that really moved me then, and again listening to it early this morning, we're God. We are
yes.
God.
Yes.
We are God. Not too many people on our show have had the courage to say that, nor have I, because God is such a charged word. Everyone hears it and thinks of something different. But ever since I first heard that statement, was in a book I read many, many years ago, I knew it was true. And I also, Bruce Lipton wrote it in his book, The Biology of Belief.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. I remember, I can still see the paragraph in the beginning. He said, in all truth, we are God.
Oh.
So we don't hear it that often, but I believe it to be true. To me, it's my truth. And you were speaking about it in relationship to Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about
Yeah.
his focus on that.
Wayne has been a mentor and a dear friend of mine for 15 years, since I started the radio show. He was one of my earliest guests, and then when I got pregnant and was in the delivery room, he hosted my show for me, and
Sweet.
he's just great because he loves contributing. And I speak about him in the present because I do believe that those that pass and cross out of this realm are just in another realm, so they're all around us at all times. So we had a great relationship with, and he's a very funny guy. He's a very funny, but when he would be on my show and say those words, I am God, and we are all God, creates a lot of controversy out there.
Yeah, it does.
There are a lot of religious beliefs, and who is he to say that, and does he have a God complex, and what an ego, and he talks about not having one, and I got all of it, right? Because I was getting the feedback as he was saying, I am God. And many different shows and many different times he would say this. And I remember when he crossed over, and I have had probably more conversations with him since he's crossed over, because he's everywhere and available at all times to me, not just through texting, to say, I asked one night as I was going to sleep, and I was mourning, because that's what you do sometimes you're in the physical, and I just said, you asked me so many times about this near-death experience, and he's so fascinated with the near-death, with crossing into other realms and parallel universes, and that's why he was so interested in Anita Moorjani's story, and she wrote that amazing book. And I said, "Where are you?" And I really wanted to know, where are you? And I got this booming voice in my head, in that from where he was on, when he was on my shows, "I am God." And it was just so clear. It was such a great moment of this resilient, resounding voice. And he's like, "I've been telling you I am God, and now I am." And when you pray, you don't need to pray to your lost loved ones or pray to God. It's all the same thing. And when I had that near-death experience, and when I had that total experience of everything is one, that's what he meant.
Right.
We are all the sun, the trees, the earth, each other, God, whatever.
Inseparable
the
from
label is.
something that's infinite.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so,
Thank you.
and God is all that is. We are all that is. We just choose to put ourselves in these separate containers.
Like this.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those, paradoxes, whether it's a drop of water or the entire ocean. It's and both.
Yes.
We are each
this and
unique
that.
aspects of something that is infinite. So therefore, we are completely connected with each other as that.
Yes.
And there is no other.
Yes.
So there is that sense of illusion that's taking place simultaneously.
But it's not from the new agey perspective of, we are all one, because I think that actually doesn't allow us to have our own personal space. I do think that this oneness is something, is a different context. It is all that is, yet at the same time staying in your body.
Unique. We're a unique expression of the divine in human form.
Right.
That's really what it
Good.
is. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, there we go.
What she said.
Whatever. Okay. I know we're getting close to the end here, so let's just start nailing them
Are we?
down.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about heaven on earth. Possible? Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, living in the present moment as we are right now, this is heaven on earth. Having this conversation is heaven on earth. Having people here in this audience watching is our own slice of heaven on earth.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Having the ability to have all these incredible sensations
Yes.
that we may not be able to have in a formless state. Whether it's taste or sight or smell or touch. What blessings they are.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's
Yes.
live it up.
Yes.
I can't believe that we're at the end of the show.
Really?
Yes, I know.
Okay.
So one more question.
Okay.
And you can speak right to our audience, and your camera's right there. A pearl of wisdom that you would want our viewers to take with them today. How would you kind of create the essence of this conversation in a pearl of wisdom?
Thank you, because I got this morning when I was out in the mountain. So many of the people that I've interviewed talk about this. I mean, Esther and Jerry Hicks talk about the art of allowing, and many different teachers and leaders talk about this allowance of all that is. And so many of our spiritual teachers simply are saying this: if you just increase your ability to have all that is, and make that bigger and bigger and bigger, and really, really, really believe in the art of possibility, then you increase your level of allowing those miracles to come into your life. Truly what I want people to believe. And so it is.
And so it is.
Aho.
Lisa, this was so fun.
Thank
I
you so
really,
much.
Really
Thank you so much.
I can't believe how
enjoyed
fast I went. Thank you.
I know. It just flew by.
Does.
So thank you so much for being on our show
Thank
today.
you so much.
And just
Thank you.
we're gonna. Wow, that was an incredible interview with our guest today, Lisa Garr, and I cannot wait to hear Stu's views on this show. Stu?
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Okay, here we go with this edition of Stu's Views, with something you can use. But call that foreshadowing, because first I want to share with you a little bit of my experience last night as being a human being, because we all are, right? And even when we're talking about consciousness and we're talking about we're all energy and we have all these choices we can make, I was going to a fundraiser for this very show last night. And I gave myself plenty of time to come down here. I was coming from Northern California down to lovely Santa Barbara. I was about 10 miles away, but over 2 hours away, as luck would have it, with traffic. Now, we all know how much we love to sit in traffic, right? Well, I gotta tell you, I found myself rather contracted. Not only that, I was contracted in such a way that I really had to pee so bad I could taste it. It was, I gotta tell you, and so trying to get to this place, and I know I'm late, and I'm supposed to actually be speaking there, greeting people who are supporting this fantastic show, which, by the way, is a great plug. Come to our website. You can actually support it yourself anytime you choose, a little Donate Now button, by the way. Okay, so here we go. I'm sitting in traffic. My knuckles are starting to get a little white. I'm starting to bite my lip because I really got to pee bad, right? And I was getting pissed and pissed off. No pun intended. Pun intended. And then I decided, I remembered. I have choice. I have choice. And I took a deep breath or two as I got out of the car, finally getting to our destination. Thank God we finally got there. And even before I got to that beloved urinal, I was able to shift the energy that I am, and how I felt, just simply because I remembered. I have a choice, as do we all in every moment. And we can actually choose what to be conscious of, what to be aware of, and to really pay attention to it, because we have so much more choice than we ordinarily think. So I'm inviting you all to really cut to the choice for yourselves and decide and ask yourself, what am I here for? What do I want to experience more than anything else? And for me, something, and here's something Stus Views you can use, is I ask every day, use me. Because I know that something greater than all of us is imagining all of us in this very moment. And it's imagining me for darn sure. So I'm asking to use me, do something with this physical being, with this life, this thing that you imagined out of thin air, and maybe it can have some positive good, make a difference in people's lives, put a smile on their face, and open their hearts a little more to a little more love. And by the way, if you can have it in a way that feels really playful and juicy and joyful to this particular being known as me, I'd be very grateful. So that's it for Stus Views. So I'm inviting you to consider to ask simply to be used, and done so joyfully. And with that, it's time for Patricia and her quantum quote of the day.
Thank you. That was very wonderful, as it usually is.
Oh, thank you.
Good. Okay, so it was really easy to select the quote for today because we dedicated the show to Dr. Wayne Dyer. So I thought, what would be more appropriate than to have a quote of his? And as I mentioned earlier, he did pass away in his sleep on August 29th at his place in Hawaii. And he is sorely missed by the consciousness community all over the world. But those of us that are really in the conversation know that he's dancing on the other side and he's really having a good time. So just to share a little bit about him, he's ranked within the top 10 most influential spiritual leaders on the planet. And this is by Body, Mind, Spirit, or Body, Mind, Spirit magazine, if I got that correct. And last year he was actually ranked the 8th person in that list. And his career began in the 70s with his book, The Erroneous Zones. It just took off, and he became a media celebrity overnight. He was on all the shows. He was on Oprah. He was on Ellen DeGeneres. He actually married Ellen DeGeneres and her partner on the show, I believe they did. And he's just been an amazing influence in our lives around consciousness and spiritual awakening. So it's a sad loss for all of us, but we know he's having a good time on the other side. And I wanted to read a little bit of what his family gave to the news after his death. This is what they said. Wayne has left his body, passing away through the night. He always said he couldn't wait for this next adventure to begin and had no fear of dying. Our hearts are broken, but we smile to think of how much he will enjoy the other side. We love you forever, Dad. I thought that was very moving. So amidst hundreds of quotes from every conceivable topic you can think of, and there, it goes by the topic instead of by the quote with this man, I chose one that I think that really resonated with me and that really aligns with this show today that we have with Lisa Garr. And here's the quote. Your soul, that inner quiet space, is yours to consult. It will always guide you in the right direction. Your soul, that inner quiet space, is yours to consult. It will always guide you in the right direction. So Wayne Dyer calls that inner quiet space soul, but it can be called many things. Some people call it higher self. Some people call it intuition. If you look at it through a psychological perspective, it can be called the superconscious mind. I call it the essential self, the essence of who we are, that timeless, eternal, omniscient being that was never born and will never die, that place in me that guides me and knows the answer. And the key to align with that place, to come to that place, is meditation, is visualization. It continues to be the most vital part of my day. If I don't have a chance to meditate in the morning, I always make time because it helps to bring me into center. So I encourage you, if you don't have a meditation practice, to get one. And if you are a meditator but have a hard time being disciplined in your practice, then revisit the conversation. Go to a place like Paradise Found right here in Santa Barbara and get some tapes or get some books or go online. There's so much about mindfulness and meditation today. It's really, really important. So I want to thank Wayne Dyer for his great contribution to our work here today. And I want to thank Lisa Garr for being on our show today. And I want to thank you for watching us and for listening. So with that, we're ready to wrap it up?
Yes.
Indeed.
All right, until next time.
Get conscious now.
If you are passionate about your message, if you want your book to be the best it can be, and if you want someone to do it for you with your collaboration every step of the way, then Ellen Reed is the one for you. Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kelly Brandenburg. I've been a stylist for the last 15 years. I'm a color specialist as well as I provide a wide variety of other services. You can find me at 19 Blue Salon in the heart of downtown. I'm happy to be a sponsor of Get Conscious Now.